The cloth from which he is cut. I mean, that is a
Just having a hard time reaching John.
DC was stunned by that head kick. Jones trying to press the issue here. Trying to
That's it. He's out.
Road to Gold family, we are back in the building. We had a great pay-per-view last week. We got good fights up this week.
Yes,
Excited to be here with y'all, man. How you doing, Ron? How you doing?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. Feeling refreshed. Great pay-per-view we had. Probably so far the best one we could probably ask for the first half of the year. It's exciting stuff that happened. Definitely need to do some good recaps here. A lot happened. A lot of things changed. I'm excited to talk about it.
Oh, for sure. We seen it was a good card from top to bottom. We had finishes, we had this long decisions, we had everything, we had rankings shuffling, we had a lot going on. So, you know, without further ado, let's just get right into it. UFC 299. We had the card started off. You know what? Let me go back because the prelim fight. The featured prelim between Curtis Blades, Jailton Almeida. It was the featured prelim. It was a good matchup. It was two grapplers, two guys that we thought were going to go in there and mix it up on the ground. And if you recall, Jailton Almeida went in there immediately and was spamming takedowns. Like he that was his game plan. And Curtis ended up getting him out of there. I'm pretty sure it was in the second round. He got him out with he caught him on a takedown and was hammer fisting him.
Hammer fist.
I guess what do you take away from this fight? What do you take away from a Curtis Blades win at this juncture?
When it comes to Curtis, man, he's one of those guys that I remember when he first came. He got a lot of hype. It was great wrestler, big guy, strong, athletic. There was just so much to say about him. Career went up and down. He's been trying to really kind of find his way back into the mix of really being a contender. I think that's a good win against a good opponent. Especially the way he did it. He was able to, like I said, that was a good stuff. He stuffed the takedown. He had the awareness with his back against the cage to kind of just position himself to be better. It was a little bit of the same situation that we saw Alex Pereira have Urian, and it was, hey, I mean, if you're going to keep on going for this takedown, my arms are free. And hammer. He's able to get the finish. It was a good win. Definitely something that should boost him up a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, he's fifth. He's fifth in the rankings right now. The only guys ahead of him, I mean, you got Stipe at 4. You got Sergey Pavlovich at 3, Cyril at 2, Tom at 1, John at, champ. I mean, Curtis is my guy. Like I have a soft spot for Curtis Blades. I feel like he's a great wrestler. His stand up, not the best stand up, but it's pretty good for a heavy grappler. And he's usually a part of exciting fights for better or worse.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where he fits in here because you got John, who's going to face Stipe, maybe? Or is he going to face Tom Aspinall? I guess you have to do Curtis Blades versus Cyril Gane or Sergey Pavlovich. That's
what I was thinking. I was thinking Cyril Gane. I was thinking really against Sergey.
You want to know?
I'm sorry, Curtis. I think it's Curtis Blade versus Sergey, and then Cyril Gane. I mean, I know he did lose to John. Maybe this is my bias for Cyril, but I would love to see him face probably the I guess has to be the loser of John versus Tom.
let me tell you my issue with Cyril Gahn, and it's something that I've heard several fighters say. He's turned down the guys. Like I remember when Tom Aspinall was ranked below him. Tom called for Cyril when he was at like 3 or 4. Cyril called. He turned it down. He did the same thing with Curtis Blades. If you heard after the fight, Curtis said, "I'm not giving Cyril Gahn any shine. Like I'm not calling him out. He turned me down. I don't want him. Like I want Tom. I want Sergey." It's like is Cyril sweet? Like I don't know what's good with him. That's your guy. I mean,
I honestly don't know. He's such a complete fighter, especially for the heavyweight division. He reminds me of those older guys watching him. Kane Jr., great striker. We don't know about his ground game. I will say that his ground game may not be what those guys were. But as far as a stand-up, he's very complete. I really don't have an answer. I mean, I hate to have to peg him as one of those guys, but maybe maybe it's just he has to build his confidence back up. He took a bad loss. In a fight that people thought was going to be a 5-round possible war, went back and forth with John Jones. Didn't happen his way. Of course, he had to fight with Francis Ngannou, which again another fight that people thought he had a very good chance of winning, and especially knowing Francis' circumstances with his knees at the time, he lost that one too. So maybe he had to kind of get back into his bag, go home, see his family, get to his roots, talk to his old coaches, maybe kind of figure some things out. Maybe he needs to just refresh his mind or something. That could be it. And simply, if that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
I mean, for sure. I mean, I will say he did have a fight versus Sergey Spivak after the John fight, which he won by KO. Spivak isn't that high in the ranking, so it wasn't like a impactful win, but it was good to get that, monkey off his back. Now, that was September 2nd, 2023. We're halfway through March. It might be time for him to get something going, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I really want to get into this main card, man. This main card was action packed, and we're gonna start it off with Peter Yan, who edged out Song Yadong in a skillful tactician type of fight that Peter won 29-28. Unanimously across all scorecards. Would you think of his performance?
I agree. It was vintage. It was vintage Peter Yan. He got stronger as the fight went on. He got smarter as the fight went on. Song Yadong, like I said, I can praise him as a striker all I want. I think at the end of the day, it was kind of his experience. Peter's been there before. He understood how to kind of go against Song Yadong's little tactical style. Kind of at the beginning, Song Yadong kind of stood in front of him a little bit, and he wasn't afraid to kind of just strike from the outside, trying to snipe him with jabs and kicks and all these other kind of things. Yan, he got his reads. He was firing back. He got his reads. But as the fight went on, of course, Peter Yan did his thing. He got stronger. He got better. He got cleaner. And then from there on, like I said, it was really just simply Peter Yan just you came out that fight at the end of it knowing Peter Yan won that fight. It was unfortunate, but it was what it was, and it was a clear win for him.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. And first of all, just want to start off this whole podcast by saying that I nailed every card on the main every fight on the main card. So excuse me if I feel confident in my picks that were, but I picked him exactly for the reasons that he won. We knew Peter's going to start out slow. We knew he was going to lose round one. He does that. He did that in all of his title fights, even against Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight belt. Jose won that early, at least the first one, if not the first 2 rounds, because Peter just, I don't know, he takes a minute to get going. And we saw that against Song Yadong. I mean, Song, bro, he's so clean and so... He's very twitchy. That left hook, which we actually talked about, that left hook from him is so fast and so gnarly. We knew he was going to come out gangbusters, and he was feigning. Sure. He was feigning takedowns. Like he had Peter kind of messed up, and it was interesting to see him rebound in rounds 2 and 3, which he did very, very smoothly. Got the unanimous decision, looked very smooth. We knew he wasn't washed, man. I don't care what the people were saying. Some of these fighters, this is a big beef I have with you. You think some of these guys are washed, the Dustin Poiriers, the Robert Whitakers, the Peter Yans. I'm not even going to say you think they're washed, but you kind of leave the door open. Like, Peter
Yan definitely. I was starting to think that for Peter Yan because some of these fights he's had recently. I mean, besides the Sean O'Malley fight, I really thought that like there was probably not no way he would lose it, but he would come out stronger. It would end up in his favor later into the fight, how it usually does. Mm-hmm. And then things don't go how they usually go for him. And then you come with a Song Yudong, a very cerebral, sharp striker, someone who he's a big guy too, strong. I thought he cocky. I thought Song Yudong may not be the one. Like Peter, like I don't know. But you said it before. Once he started speaking English at the press conference, that was when it was raps. He came in there with a whole different kind of mindset. We knew what it was at that point.
No, he really did. His, like you said, his jab, some of his takedowns were insane.
Yeah.
Gene just put a great question in the chat, which I'm excited to ask you because we've talked a little bit about this before. He asked, "Did you feel like Peter Yan was robbed versus Aljo and O'Malley?"
O'Malley, yes, for sure. I think he was robbed against O'Malley. I think he beat O'Malley. I rewatched that fight a couple times now. I think he was robbed in that fight. And the thing about that fight is that set up so much. Like the division reshaped itself because, especially considering at the time, O'Malley was like ranked around 11, 12, something somewhere in there, and he was like ranked like 3 or 4. So that fight reshaped the division quite literally. And not only that, Sean O'Malley became champion after that fight. So, man, watch the film. Watch the film. And if you truly watch that film again and you think that Peter Yan lost it, I don't know. Like, come on. Like I rewatched it several times. He looked good in the back end of those rounds. There was some close ones in the beginning. I get that. But even those close ones, they definitely look like Peter Yan was the guy who was throwing more. He was landing more. Sean was backing up a lot. I get it. Some of the shots were very solid shots he was hitting them with. Peter Yan was so much more active in some of those like middle to earlier rounds. And then the takedowns as well throughout the fight. Yeah, man, he was robbed. The Aljo fight was different. Fight 1 obviously was the legal knee. I mean, come on. Fight 2. I actually agreed. I actually thought Aljo did win that fight. Aljo, I think he had a good game plan, especially against Peter Yan. He knew Peter Yan was a good wrestler, but he's not a great wrestler. He's not Aljo. Aljo, he's been getting people's backs, choking them. That's his whole thing. He's not the stand-up fighter people think he is. He's really good in the stand-up, but he wants to take you down. He wants to get in your back, choke you out. And throughout that fight, he was able to do a good job kind of crowding Peter Yan, making him feel uncomfortable, and making him not know when the takedown was happening. And then as it eventually, of course, happened throughout the fight, he kind of took control of those moments.
Yeah, I mean, I need to rewatch the Sean versus Peter fight. Because how did you feel? Please. All right, let me ask you this. How did you feel in the moment? Not rewatching.
Okay.
How did you feel in the moment after that fight?
That's a good question. Because in the moment, I honestly didn't know what to think. In the moment, the buzzer at the end of the fight happened. And I felt it could have been 50-50, but I, even in the moment, felt the rightful winner of this fight probably should be Peter Yan. In the moment, I understood if you were to give it to Sean O'Malley. But I kind of felt like it was more towards Yan than anything else. But then after rewatching the fight, I almost felt like, wait a second, I don't even know why I felt that way. This is almost a no-brainer. Like, Peter Yan definitely won the fight. Like, I don't rewatch the fight. I don't understand how the judges could have saw it any other way. It was a great fight. It was close. But the moments that happened in the fight, not only did Peter Yan mostly win, but those takedowns, he would have Sean O'Malley on the ground for 1, 2, 3 different minutes and about 2 or 3 different rounds. And those were rounds where Sean O'Malley was not having very high output. He wasn't cracking Yan. He was getting some good shots, but he wasn't cracking him. And for every moment that Sean O'Malley did crack him, I think Peter Yan got one back. So I definitely felt that was a fight where it was close in the moment. I lean towards Jan, but after rewatch, for sure Jan.
That's that's very interesting. Like I said, I'm gonna have to rewatch that because I remember after watching that fight, and again, it's hard for me sometimes because I'm biased. Like when I look at these certain fighters, like I'm very biased. So sometimes I want to see fights a certain way, which is why rewatching them is so healthy and so good. I encourage everybody watching. Like if you think a fight's controversial, watch it, wait a few weeks, a few months, whatever, go back and rewatch it. You have a different perspective. But I remember leaving I wasn't in Abu Dhabi, but I remember leaving that card that was in Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
And I was like, Sean won that fight. Like, I'm not sure why everybody's so up in arms. But I've obviously heard you explain it. I've heard other people's opinions on it. I'm definitely going to have to rewatch that. Now, the Aljo one, I thought Aljo also won that. Gene disagrees. We'll have to check that one out as well. I definitely thought Aljo won that one. I mean, his backpack is some of the most elite backpacking we've seen. Once he gets on your back, it's pretty much one thing I do want to ask you about that though is how do you feel about backpacking with no submission threats? Because he did that a lot.
It's such a hard topic, actually. It's so hard to judge because if you are of the world of jiu-jitsu and if you understand how submission, even wrestling works, that's a very dominant position. So even if you're not getting the submission, as long as you're working in that submission, as long as you're trying, it's almost the equivalent of the mount. Almost the mount, I think, is more dominant. But I think if you used to rank them, the backpack is like second, right up under. That's how I would view that. So to have someone's back almost an entire round, even if you don't even get off a good submission, to me it feels like okay, that should give them the round for sure because they had you in a vulnerable spot. You couldn't do anything to them. They had your back. You were able to hit them, threaten submissions, things of that nature. It definitely feels like one of those situations that you're so vulnerable. How do you not give it to the other fighter? But at the same time, I understand that it's not the mount. You're not getting hard strikes, hard hooks, hard elbows. Sometimes you can get some of those in, but it's not the same as when you are in mount position. So I kind of understand the other side of it where you don't want to give that much credit to it because you didn't do anything. You didn't get a hard strike off or submission. So I'm always of the variety of I think that should count for something. I think that's an important moment of the fight if you could do something like that, especially someone's back. It's not easy. Everyone is trained not to let a wrestler, jiu-jitsu guy, whoever, get your back. So I'm of the variety that I think that's an important moment of any fight.
No, I think I would agree. I was just curious because I know a lot of people. Some people scored it more for Peter because of that, and they didn't want to see. They didn't really necessarily see the submission threats. So I was just curious. As far as what's next up in Bantam, Peter's 4, Song 7, but Peter, first off, do we want to see Merab for the title? Is that what's next?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like you'll be doing him a disservice to not have him fight for the title. The only reason I can see that not happening is if Merab says if Sean's waiting, and Merab gets itchy, and I don't know, he feels like a gamer to me that'll take any fight, which I would encourage him not to do. But he should literally wait until Sean O'Malley. You shouldn't fight anyone else until Sean O'Malley.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, Merab ragdolled Peter, so I'm not all that interested to see that fight. Aljamain is at featherweight fighting on UFC 300 against Calvin Kattar, so he's out of there. Corey Sandhagen is in kind of a weird situation being number 3, but he kind of accepted a fight with Umar, who's like 10.
Yeah.
So, I would like to see Peter, but Peter beat Corey Sandhagen. So that's another one where it's like, oh man, Peter's kind of in a weird spot now where I'm sure they'll give that rematch to Peter. Not yet, but would you want to see him run it back? Peter versus Sean?
I would like to see it. See,
maybe not.
It's such a weird spot because Peter Yan is. It's hard. It's hard to really say. I wanna see that fight, but if I saw it, I want to see it sooner rather than later. But it feels like that's a fight that would have to happen later rather than sooner. So it's just a weird situation. If it's not going to happen soon, like within the next year, I don't want to see it. At that point, let's just move on and with other contenders. But theoretically, yeah, I for sure want to see that fight.
All right, we'll definitely we'll have to put a pin in that. I wouldn't mind seeing Peter versus Cheeto. There's he's got some options, maybe not a lot, but either way, good win for Piotr against Song Yadong. Next up, though, another banger of a fight, man. We had Gilly B versus Jack Della. Gilbert Burns ultimately almost had the victory, had it within his grasp. He was winning on all of the judges' scorecards, and he took a brutal knee in that third round from Jack Della and got put out. So I'm sure we both were impressed with Jack. How do we feel about Gilbert after this? How do we feel about him? Because I don't want to say he was washed, because I don't personally believe he is.
Right.
But
there was moments. I understand. There was moments.
He's
beginning, especially the very beginning of the fight, was definitely looking a little scary for Gilly. I was looking at Gilbert Burns like, I need you to figure something out like very fast. You're more experienced. He was just hitting Gilbert whenever he wanted to. Gilbert wasn't firing back, but ultimately, I feel good about Gilbert. I will say after that performance, it does feel like this may be the back end of his career, where you just don't know where things are going to start. What's going to happen for him? What wins or what losses are going to come? That would have been a good win to kind of get him back into the swing of things. It's a fight he should have won, if you ask me. But, things happen. It's fighting. One moment can change the whole fight, and that's what happened. So, especially with that loss, it's going to be a climb for him. He's going to have to fight at least 2 or 3 like good opponents to get himself back into like the championship really consideration. And I don't know if he has that in him. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard, because I feel like Gilly is a fan favorite. Like, people love him. And that's why it sucked watching him. He started off slow. Jack was kind of touching him up, but Jack wasn't really putting things behind it. It felt like whenever Gilly connected with Jack, it was, impactful.
Yeah.
But, he was getting touched, but he ultimately found his footing, and he started finding his groove.
He did, yeah.
Just like that, man. He took a brutal knee, and then he followed up and got him up out of there. I think I would agree with your sentiment that he does have a climb. It didn't drop him too far down the rankings. He's at 6 right now.
Okay.
Jack's at 5, but he's at 6. I wouldn't mind seeing him face a Sean Brady. I wouldn't mind seeing him face a Colby Covington. I want to see Colby fight anyone at this point. I mean, he doesn't fight that much, so I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight anyone.
All over social media, no fights,
bro. You feel me? He called out Ian Gary, which is
he doesn't want that.
Not a fight I want to see. Not a fight I want to see. But I would love to see the build up to that fight. That build up would be insane. But to agree, I don't think Gilly's washed, man. And I don't know if that's just the because I'm a fan of the OGs. Because Giller's he's not young.
I know.
He's not young. He's 36, 37. Like, he's
been around.
He had a shot against Kamaru. He's I don't know. He's been around. He's gonna have a trek up, but nonetheless, Jack Della Maddalena. I mean, can't say enough about him. He did a good job. He did. He found a finish. Were you impressed by him? Were you impressed by his performance? How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, he did better than I thought he was gonna do. Like I said, he was able to touch Gilbert a little bit, standing up. Even when there was moments where there was scuffles or clinches or little groundwork, I think he did a really good job. I thought there was not a moment in the fight where, watching Jack, I felt that he was being dominated or he had no shot. Even though the fight was going Gilbert's way, it always kind of felt like, all right, like, we know Jack. We've seen him in the past. We've seen things he's done. He's one of those guys where a moment does change things for him.
quick.
And he proved it. He proved it into this fight with Gilbert. So I knew it was always a threat. I think the part that sucks the most, the fact that how late in the fight it happened. That like, oh, Gilbert, just if you keep the coast, just coast. I don't know, man. Just do what you got to do. But it happened at such an inconvenient time. And then yeah, I mean, shout out to Jack though. I do see a lot of potential in him. Excited to see him again.
And Cottrell points out, would we want to see Jack Della versus Shavkat? I mean, there's not too many. He's at 5. There's not too many guys above him that he'll be able to face. I think Bilal fights for the belt next. Shavkat or Colby? Which one are you picking there for Jack to fight?
I'd rather see Shavkat. That's going to be a more exciting fight. That's going to be a whole bunch of things going on. I don't even know what things are going to... There's just things. Just flying knees, head kicks, knees, elbows. There's going to be a lot of bodies being thrown around, a lot of transitions, reversals. It's going to be just things happening. That's more exciting than seeing him versus Colby. Because we know a fight with Colby versus anybody, what it's going to look like. It's going to be some jabs, some hooks, all setting up a takedown, some lay and pray. I'm sorry, maybe I'm just not a super. I like Colby Covington, but his fight style at times can get stale, and that's what it's going to look like if he was to fight Colby.
Can Jack Della be a champion?
That's to be determined. I don't know. I don't know if I'm that degree of sold. I don't know if I've seen enough of his attributes at work to say he has championship material. He has what it takes yet. I feel like there's several fighters that have multiple, whether it's striking, wrestling, submissions, better IQ, better cardio. I feel like there's several fighters that have several things better than him, that even if he was to challenge for the belt, whoever is at champion at whatever time this will be at, I don't think he would win. It's to be determined. He has a little stirring pot of stuff. He has some things, but we need to let him simmer a little bit. Let him hit the training room. Let him talk to coaches. If he can advance his current skills just to another level, we'll be working with something.
For sure. And I mean, I don't know. You're right. It is to be determined. He definitely had a step up in competition. He took out Kevin Holland 2 fights ago and beat who did he beat last? I'm not sure who he beat last, but he's had a step up in competition. He taken out Gilbert Burns, who's, I don't want to say a gatekeeper, because I hate that word.
He's around that time now, though.
He's more of a gatekeeper than like a Robert Whitaker is.
Okay, yeah, that's for sure.
Because he's always in the top 5, but he got his shot. Since then, he hasn't been consistent. So I it's to be determined. But like I said, Jack Della took out Kevin Holland 2 fights ago. Kevin Holland was on this card.
He was.
But MVP, Michael Venom Page.
That was the biggest disappointment I've seen in a while.
Ooh, Kevin Holland hate. Interesting.
That was very disappointing.
All right. Well, here's a good question that I wanted to ask you. Did MVP win more or did Kevin lose more in this fight?
I really want to say MVP won more. I really think Kevin Holland was trying to walk him down. He was really trying to throw hooks, get in there, but MVP was countering. He was countering with a spinning elbow. Look, it's hard enough to counter with a jab. It's hard enough to counter with a kick, a hook. He was countering like 3 or 4 times in that fight. He chose a spinning elbow to be the counter of choice, and it landed almost every single time. And Kevin Holland had nothing for it. Every single time, Kevin Holland would take that stab, take a jab at him, or step in, try to close that space for a hook or a kick. He'd just check it, he'd just move out the way, or he just meet him in the middle when Kevin Holland wasn't expecting it, and he would hit him with a great strike, a great straight, or a hook, or a spinning elbow. I really thought Kevin Holland was going to give me more than that. I thought he was a better striker than that. That fight honestly made me just rethink who I thought Kevin Holland was.
Whoa. Let's slow down here. Let's slow down here.
He did.
Kevin, he Isn't that a weird style though? You know, it's one of the most unconventional styles I've ever seen on the feet. I mean, the hands down, karate in and out. It's almost like he's a fencer in the Olympics, the way he's in and out. It's almost like karate, like standard baseline
Yeah.
karate where he's point fighting. But he is, you know, going for spinning attacks and he's going for heavy twos, heavy crosses, heavy jabs. Isn't that kind of hard to you don't think it's hard to judge Kevin off of that? Because we've seen what he's done.
Okay, it is, but thinking about the fact that he fought Stephen Thompson in a fight that looked kind of similar to that. It looked like Stephen Thompson has a very similar style to that. He keeps his hands up a little more. They're not literally at his waist like how MVP was. He keeps his hands up a little bit more, but same wide base, very on the balls of his feet, wide. He's standing sideways, comes in, a lot of crosses, a lot of jabs, head kicks. A lot of the same techniques were even thrown. But maybe it's because Stephen Thompson was just older. Maybe it was the fact that he's just a little bit slower, but the fight was just dirtier. The fight just had more back and forth to it. And that was part of the reason why I thought Kevin Holland was going to have an understanding of how to fight MVP. Mm-hmm. But he looked outclassed. It didn't look like he knew what to do. And I mean, it's not like MVP's a spring chicken. Like, he's up there. He's 36 years old at his UFC debut. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can only imagine what he looked like as a 28-year-old. So I don't know. I really think Kevin Holland has had a similar situation with Stephen Thompson where he performed a lot better, and he didn't show anything from that fight against MVP.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there. Before I get into what this fight means, because I mean, Michael Venom Page debuted rankings 13. I thought that was a little low. But before I get into that, how did you feel about the fanfare, about the entrance, about all these things? Like, were you? What did it give you some type of joy? Was it funny? Was it cool? Were you annoyed? Because I watched the fight with some of our friends. Shout out to Isaiah. Shout out to Charles. And they were not a fan of
really.
No, they were. In fact, they were such not fans that they started cheering for Kevin Holland because
that's funny.
That's how much they were annoyed. And I will say his entrance did take a long time. But how did you feel about that aspect of it?
No, what's funny is, real quick, did you hear what he wanted to do actually for his entrance?
I did.
He wanted to just appear in the octagon. Lights go back out. He starts back at the entrance and then walks in. He wanted to do some extra stuff. Yeah. But even just considering about what he did do, I grew up watching WWE. I grew up watching these grand entrances, and I get it. They don't need to be that spectacular. I'm not asking for a whole performance when you come out, the tunnel. But have fun with it. If you're someone who's a more fun guy, who isn't super just like they're all locked in, but you come out just one goal, one mission, head down. You don't even care what music's playing. You don't even hear it. You're thinking about the fight. That's one thing. Do what you want to do. But for the guys who want to have more fun, Israel Adesanya has done it before. Sean O'Malley comes off as a fighter that would do something like that. But there are several fighters that, if you want to have fun with it, have fun with it. Come out, have a good time. Dance a little bit, maybe a little performance if you wanted to. I'm a fan of it. I like to see people have fun in their entrances. I think it would draw more people to the sport too. Imagine, seeing your favorite fighter come down the ramp, doing a little dance, doing a little move, becomes favorite song, doing a little pose. I think it's good. I think it's healthy.
I mean, Michel Pereira in the prelims, he came out and did a whole choreography.
That did happen.
Dance with his coach. I mean, I thought it was great. And you're right, it does attract people to the sport. I mean, I can speak from personal experience. When I was on the borderline of trying to be a fan, I saw Izzy's walkout in Sydney against Robert Whittaker for the belt, and he did a whole dance, and I was like, wow, this is more than boxing. Like, this is crazy. So I mean, it definitely can. I will say MVP's walkout did take a long time. It took a while. If I was Kevin, I would have been annoyed. But it was also interesting to hear MVP talk. He spoke on the Ariel Helwani show and talking about the head games that he was trying to play. I wouldn't even say trying to play with Kevin Holland, But boy, he was taking everything for data, whether it's the weigh-ins, whether it's the press conference, looking at his body language. And he does his little snake thing, and Kevin reached up and put it down. He's like, I got you out of your element. You're reacting to what I'm doing now. What do you think you're going to do in the cage? Stuff like that. I think all of that stuff is apropos. I think it's good. I think it's healthy, reasonable amount. But I guess, we'll see. Dana clearly didn't like it. He cast it down in the post-fight press conference.
You know what? That's so hilarious. I don't know who it was Izzy fought that he took the same mentality to. He even in the center of the octagon, when he touches gloves with people, he makes sure to touch them. They'll put their hand out. Was it Rob? He put his hand over Rob's hand just to make him understand, I can touch you whenever. You didn't touch me. And this little stuff like that. He takes the same approach to a lot of his fights, and it's so funny. But I mean, I get it. It's mind games. It's information being collected. It all does relatively mean something. So I mean, hey, if it helps you out, do what you got to do.
That's what I think. But nonetheless, let's get back to the rankings. Michael Venom Page, MVP, debuts at 13. Is that low or high?
Debut 13. I think it's low. It's low. Like 13 is he should be a higher number than 13.
Where are you putting him?
I felt that a good number for him would have been probably around. Knowing how good he's been in his past, I know it's not UFC, but come on now. You put Michael Chandler at 4s when he came to the UFC.
They did.
I think he could have been 8, 9. He could have been somewhere in there. That would have been a good place to put him.
Yeah, around, I feel like they didn't want to put him above Stephen Thompson out of respect, which, I get. Stephen's at 9. Jeff Neal coming off a loss at 10. Vicente Luque trending downwards. I mean, Neil Magny's at 12. So I understand Neil Magny's coming off a win, but you're going to put him below Neil? I think MVP dismantles Neil. I don't even think that's...
I agree.
I don't even think that's close. Do we want to see Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus MVP? I've been hearing a lot of... It's 50-50 I've seen. Some people are saying, oh, this is going to be a super crazy, all types of different strike fight. I've heard people say this is going to be boring. They're just going to look to counter each other. Is this a fight that you would set up if you were in the UFC, if you were Dana White, Hunter Campbell, if you were these guys?
I wouldn't do it. Because if you've ever watched a karate competition, that's exactly what it would look like. A whole bunch of stabbing in and out, leg kicks, and especially knowing they've both come from that world, that universe of where they do come jump in and out, they counter each other. It's I think Stephen Thompson has shown in the past he can take it to an opponent when he wants to, but Stephen Thompson's he's world class. Knowing his opponent is just as good as him in that kind of style of fighting, he's not going to be that aggressive with him. He's going to pretty much fight him like a typical karate tournament, karate match. MVP, he'll probably play some mind games with him, throw some feints. I just don't see a world where those two fighting is as exciting as people want it to be. I get why people think it's going to be exciting, but I don't think it's really going to be that exciting.
Could MVP be in a boring fight though? Just from a mentality standpoint, I understand, and I want to agree. I'm just going to play devil's advocate though, because you got two guys that have the most diverse arsenal, arguably, that we've seen at welterweight, if not the UFC. And just seeing what MVP was doing in there, because it's not like MVP was in there throwing haymakers and wobbling Kevin and doing all this. He was stabbing in and out. He was, doing his little dance moves and then throwing, spinning elbows. He was doing all that, and it wasn't necessarily devastating things. So, I mean, I'm not so sure that he can be in a boring fight.
I get that. I definitely understand that point of view of it. But, I mean, it feels like when you're amongst the highest level of play, and I think MVP, knowing Stephen Thompson fights in a very similar fashion and has been successful, not only in the UFC, but outside the UFC with this style of fighting, I think you'd see a more calm version of him. I mean, he'd be fighting out of his game to be the aggressor. Not saying that he's never been the aggressor before, But at the same time, I mean, that's not he's a counter striker. He wants to come at you just to have you react to something so he can counter that. His whole motive isn't to walk you down. And I get it. Like I said, I get it. I have hopes if that fight was to happen, it'd be exciting. I just don't think it would actually be exciting.
No, I probably would agree. I will say MVP does have that dog in him. He was in a bare knuckle fight with Mike Perry, and if you know anything about Mike Perry, that guy is a savage with the bare knuckle fighting. So I think if it came down to it, he could. But I mean, I see Cottrell in here saying MVP said it would be boring. It probably would be just because they're so high level. So we probably won't see that. He needs to face somebody though. Jeff Neal, Vicente Luque. I don't want to see him versus Neil Magny. Do not put him.
Yeah, I don't want to see that either.
Nobody.
I think Jeff Neal could be actually an exciting fight.
Jeff
Neal, he's going to take it. He's going to try to take it to MVP. MVP, that's the kind of fight he wants. He wants someone to try to come at him where he can counter. He can get some of his strikes off. I don't know. That could be exciting.
You give somebody that won't sprint away from Jeff Neal. I don't know. We might get some action in there. I don't know.
That was a crazy shot for no reason at all. Crazy shot.
Word to Ian Machado. Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll have to see how that plays out, man. But I'll tell you what, at lightweight, co-main event, El Diamante. That's all I gotta say. Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. Dustin ended up getting him out of there, man. He got him out. Benoit looked very good early. There's been some discussion that maybe he had a staph infection. He was on antibiotics, and that's why he went out so fast. I'm not really sure. I can't speak to that. I'm not making excuses for him. Dustin got him out of there. Great fight. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was a great fight. Look, I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I'm really not. But I mean, he got tired. It seemed pretty. I get it. He did start off fast. He started off continuously walking Dustin down. A lot of strikes, takedown attempts. A lot was just he was always doing something. I don't know. Maybe he knew he didn't have enough energy for the fight, so maybe he chose to try to just make this as short as possible. I don't know. Dustin looked good. Like I said, I'm not gonna take anything from him. He did look good. He had really good strikes. He looked sharp out there in his typical Dustin fashion. Controlled aggression, a controlled brawler. He threw a lot of clean, good strikes, hooks, jabs, uppercuts. He's throwing it all. I just can't shake the thought of assuming all these rumors are true. If Benoit was to be fully healthy for that fight,
doesn't change.
Does it happen? I don't know. It felt like he was walking himself into a bang out with Dustin Poirier, where he would throw a whole bunch of hooks, jabs, counters, go for a takedown. He would pull guillotine. It was just a crazy fight. So much was going on, and I don't know. I mean, maybe he keeps Dustin on the ground a little bit longer. Maybe the takedowns are cleaner. Maybe he gets to do some more ground and pound. I don't know. If he was healthy, I'm just saying we don't know.
I just don't know. What did he expect to do that for 5 rounds? Did he expect to shoot relentless takedown? Because this is essentially what his game plan was. His game plan was engage close. Once Dustin gets going for the takedown. And it worked for round 1. I will say also, he didn't really secure a takedown, though. Dustin's jumping Gilly. He's the Gilly jumper. That's what he is. That's who he is at his heart. He jumped Gilly every time.
That's so
I'm not
nasty.
so sure he gets those takedowns, man.
I think he does. And I hate the fact that he jumped Gilly so many times where we don't even know for sure. But I think he definitely does, personally.
I wouldn't bet on that. We know Dustin has some of the best cardio in the UFC, so I don't see him getting tired. So, I mean, if he's going to relentlessly be on his Marab grind and just shoot for takedowns after takedown, successful or not, then I guess. I think when it's that, when there's that big of a gap striking wise, I think it's just inevitable that Dustin was going to get him out of there.
Was the gap that big?
I mean, yeah. You think Benoit he didn't have Dustin wobbled like once. He wasn't really connecting cleanly. Like sure, it's a fight. You're gonna get some strikes in. It's gonna happen. But I felt every time Dustin was engaging, I was like, oh, this might be it. I never felt that way when Benoit was pressuring him. That's all.
I feel like I don't know. I'm making a lot of assumptions here because it was unparalleled amounts of pressure he was putting on Dustin that we knew couldn't go on for 5 rounds. We just knew that, and I feel like he got ahead of himself a lot of times. When he got knocked out, I get it. Dustin was back against the cage. He was trying to walk him down, but I mean, what did you expect? This is one of the premier strikers in the division who you're trying to go toe to toe with. If you just take a second to slow down, just have an IQ, back up a little bit, make him come after you some. Like just do something else in this game plan as you're obviously going to tire out. And I taking nothing from Dustin. I almost want to credit the loss more to him being fatigued than the fact that Dustin, I mean, it was a great shot. Put him down. Would have put down a lot of guys. So I'm not saying the shot was a bad shot or lucky or anything like that. But he was obviously tired. He obviously didn't have enough gas by that point in the fight. And man, if he just had some IQ to slow it down, regardless of bad cut or not, staff or not, whatever the situation was, hey, like I think the fight could have went a different way.
I mean, you might be. I mean, maybe it could have. It's like you said, it's a fight. Anything can happen. If you think that he's standing on the feet, striking with Dustin, especially backed up against the cage, I think you're a little insane. I think the fight would have been over in round 1 if Dustin would have cornered him. I felt like his approach was probably the best approach he could have had. Was, hey, let me bang, go relentless, try to get takedowns, maybe get into a mount position where I can, end the fight on top. Because I'm not going to win on the feet. I have staph on my forehead, so I'm not going to be able to just have unlimited cardio to do this for 5 rounds. I need to get this done quick. The best thing I can do is really just try to get him out on the ground quick. But nonetheless, it's not what happened. Dustin got him out of there, and he's calling for a shot. He tweeted. He said Islam in June. Islam said, "Hey, I'm with it. I know you're a little biased because of your whole Charles fandom, but how do we feel about Dustin getting a title shot?"
No. Not at least not yet. Okay. At least not yet. You lost to Charles. You got knocked out by a head kick Justin Gaethje. No. Wait your turn. Wait in line. The champ has a name. He was supposed to have his shot first.
I gotta stop you there. The champ has a belt. So continue.
Hey, it's the quote. It's a quote that a fighter said.
I'm quoting what another fighter said on Instagram, but continue. Continue.
Either way, Charles Oliveira had a shot lined up. He got his eyebrow quite literally split into 2 pieces. Couldn't go on with the fight. Look, he already has a fight set up against Arman. Definitely, regardless of how that fight goes, I think the winner of that fight should fight for the belt. Charles, once he wins that fight, he's going to go and fight for the belt. And then, while that's happening, Dustin, you should probably go redeem yourself regardless of what happens with Justin Gaethje next. And then we can talk about your fight for the championship. But no, Dustin, wait your turn.
I'm going to say, do you think that a fight like that can align? Because let me just paint everybody a picture of lightweight and how it was supposed to go. So Islam had a scheduled fight against Charles Oliveira. It was booked. We were a week out.
Where's my belt?
Anyways, it's what should have happened. Charles training like a dummy in Brazil. He busts his eyebrow up. He's out. So they bring in Volk. We know how that goes. That being the case, Justin Gaethje, he goes out, and before this, he knocks out Dustin Poirier. So he's thinking, all right, I'm facing the winner of Charles and Islam. That's what he's thinking. This happens. He's like, oh man, now it's like, I don't know what's going on. So then he takes a fight with Max Holloway because it's like, well, this is, in the meantime, this is a banger, UFC 300, all of that. Let me do that. That's all fine and dandy. Charles, who should not be rewarded for training like a dummy in Brazil, he ends up now he has to fight Arman Sarukian, which was quote unquote a title eliminator. Whoever wins this fight was supposed to be fighting for the title. But now Justin Gaethje's hot off of a knockout there. If he goes out and finishes Max Holloway at lightweight, do we do Justin Gaethje versus the winner of the Charles fight? Do we do Justin Gaethje versus Islam? Like, do we do him rematch for the trilogy against Poirier? There's a lot of options here. I'm not really sure where to go. Where do we go?
I think Dana simply goes to Islam and says, these are the 3 fights you can choose between. Who do you want? And I think personally, who he chooses is going to say a lot about him.
No,
it's going to say a lot, because if he chooses Justin or even a Dustin, personally to me, he's picking the fighters that stylistically he knows he can get the win against, and not the fighter who he was supposed to fight way back when in the first place. Where personally, I don't know who wins that fight. I don't know who wins.
Can I tell you why I disagree with that?
Huh?
Can I tell you why I disagree with that?
Why?
Because, and I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to start or trying to big up.
But he is. Just know that he actually is.
I'm really not. I'm just gonna tell you the facts. He didn't get Arman out of there, but he's faced Arman in the past. He beat him. Unanimous decision, beat him. He finished Charles, not recent, but relatively recent. He faced him and he finished him. I don't think it's crazy for him to want to fight somebody new. He just came off of fighting Volkanovski twice. Is it the rematch? Is this all that he wants to do? Like, no, he wants to fight new fighters. He wants to increase his legacy. He wants to add names to his resume, which people make such a big deal about. So, you get a Dustin, you get a Justin on your resume. It's like, I don't know. That seems like a pretty good thing to me.
I agree. I totally get it, but it's my bias against what happens with Justin and Dustin when they face fighters with the ability to not only kind of, some who can strike them a little bit, but of course the ones that can also have a tremendous, whether a jiu-jitsu game, wrestling game, or something of that nature. You start to see situations of, either they can't get up, they triangles, rear naked chokes, it's a whole bunch of it's a lot of things going on. And then when it comes to those two fighting, it's like, I don't know if them being champions is the kind of I just don't know if they have it. Like, and it sounds crazy to say, I just don't know if they are the material we want to see at champion. But against Islam, it seems like it's gonna be one-sided. Like, Islam would not only take them down, I will give him credit for this. He's a guy who's gonna want to prove a point. He's gonna probably stand with them for a little bit, but we know it's gonna happen. He's gonna take them down. But both of them, same game plan. Take him down eventually. He's gonna maul them. Switch positions. Elbow, hook. Switch positions. Elbow, hook. Oh, you're scoring me a little too much. Triangle, armbar, rear naked choke, whatever it's gonna be. And I mean, that's a testament to how good he is. Understandable. But when you see someone like Charles, who has the submission game, he has the ground game. He can fight. He can fight off his back with the best of them. He can be on top and fight on top of you with the best of them. He can transition. He can reverse. And then not only that, you stand up with him, and he's no slouch. He elbows, knees, counter knees, crane kicks, side kicks. He has it all there too. If you want to improve your legacy, to me, fight the best in the division first, which you get between Charles and Arman, whoever wins that fight, And then, okay, if you want to go get some with Justin or Dustin, do that. But even after that, though, I want to see you fight Arman. I want to see that fight too, because I think after Charles, personally, he's the next best in the division.
I'm not going to disagree with you there, though. I do agree. Arman dangerous, Charles dangerous. I do think you're sleep on Dustin and Justin. I think they both have held interim titles before. Not anyone just gets to hold those. They mean something. They might be, kind of fake, but they mean something. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm very interested to see where the UFC decides to go here and how they settle this. A lot of this could be solved on UFC 300, which is when Charles and Arman fight. It's when Justin Gaethje fights Max. We'll have a show for that next month. Can't wait for it. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. But ultimately, the main event, which was a 5-round just show of skill between Sugar Sean O'Malley and Marlon Chito Vera, pretty one-sided. Nothing that we didn't really expect. We always thought Chito had a way to get that win, but I mean, ultimately, it's what we expected to happen. Sean O'Malley won the fight by unanimous decision, 50-45. Some had 50-44. Did you take anything away from this fight?
I took away that between those two fighters, how they're going to fight. Is that it happened exactly how everybody thought it was going to happen. Chito, I did take away that he has the hardest head maybe in the UFC. He took one of the most brutal knees. You can hear something break. I think it's his nose. That he can take a shot with the best of them. But outside of that, Chito, you got going too late. But one thing I did notice, which is a little thing I saw about Sean this fight, is even when Chito started kind of going after him in the third or fourth round, started trying to pour it on, Sean increased his output even that much more. He didn't allow Chito to outpace him at any point. And that's giving like 2 or 3 other rounds of him already outstriking Chito. So even when Chito found, okay, this is my usual time of turning up, let me do this right now, Sean said, no, not today. I'm not letting you do that to me. Not right now. Not today. It's my belt. And he showed that even I can beat you at your game. Later into these rounds, you think you're fresher. You think you have more explosion, whatever. What it is, I have more of it. And he did that. So that's probably the one thing I took away from the fight. Kudos to Sean. But Chito, switch up your game style, switch up your game plan, find a new gym. I don't know what it is you have to do, but do something to change something up so you can have fights that go a different way than how that one went.
Yeah, I mean, I it's bad when you watch a UFC fight and you start to just feel bad for like one of the fighters. Not even necessarily a knockout or a submission, but just a 5-round beatdown. Like you just feel bad. Like I'm like, man, Chito, his kids are in the crowd. Like you're doing that knee that you just talked about. That was a crazy knee. You heard it, and that was a packed Miami arena, and you heard it clear as day.
Yeah.
So I felt like I learned that Sean, which I knew he was for real, but it's definitely levels. Striking wise,
sure.
Yeah, and he is as elite as it gets. On the feet. I mean, he was doing whatever he wanted in there. Chito, he got a few licks in. Not really. He got a few in. But ultimately, Sean went out there and did what he had to do. Now, I guess following up with that, he called out Ilya in his post-fight. He said he would fight Merab. I'm sure we can agree on which one looks better, but which one should he do next?
He should go fight Merab. You have a test. Don't wait until he's actually, one of the top contenders in your division to go try to fight someone else somewhere else. You have something to deal with. You have to deal with an animal in your division. And honestly, look, if you win that one, hey, do what you need to do. Go fight whoever you want to fight after that. Though there's other fighters in the division that I think are definitely going to be good competition for him. The preparation is going to go into it. The fight itself is not going to be easy. that is a fight where on paper you want to say that's Marab all day. I don't want to think that. I want to think that I've seen Sean O'Malley in different jiu-jitsu tournaments. I've seen him. He's a very sneaky submission game. He can fight off his back very well, honestly. I believe he's going to show us more than what we have already seen from him in the past. So I want to say a fight goes differently than what we expect it to be. But you need to go handle that. Don't think about anybody else. You go handle that.
No, I hear you. Shout out to Coach Barody in the comments, man. He's in there.
Shout out to him.
Nah, I agree. I don't know. I am kind of over all of these champions immediately trying to move up to the next division without any defenses. I understand why it's appealing. Being a double champ is some of the most elite club. It's one of the most elite clubs you can get into in the UFC. Almost more elite, exclusive than the Hall of Fame, to be quite honest. It's only been 4 of them.
Yeah.
So I understand why, but they're gonna water it down. It's not gonna mean anything if you win the belt and it's like, oh, I can just go up.
Exactly.
You're Alexander Volkanovski. That's one thing. He had countless defenses. He
number one pound for pound,
countless defenses. He cleared out the division. I think that's a catalyst. Izzy, the same thing. Izzy cleared out his division. You should only be able to go up when people are talking about, well, who's he gonna fight next? Is like he's beat the top 5 contenders. Is there anyone else for him to fight? I feel like that's when you go up. There are obviously extenuating circumstances where something different would cause somebody to go up, but I just don't want to see them water down.
For sure. This isn't boxing. Everyone just can't hold 1 million titles.
Don't water it down. That's all I'm saying. But, like I said, nonetheless, we got potentially Merab versus Sean. I mean, we seen Sean versus Aljo. A lot of people counted Sean out. I
counted Sean out, honestly.
You did?
Yeah.
I probably was picking Aljo, just going into that. But we saw how that played out. I mean, he defended takedowns. He kept distance.
Beautiful counter.
That counter. He sniped him from the outside with a 2. I mean, how do we see Sean versus Merab?
That may be the one fight where we see a lot of Sean. People are going to say it's running. He's not running. It's going to be a lot of lateral movement, a lot of circling. It's going to be a whole lot of, trying to stay outside, not letting him walk him down, not getting into any wars, not getting into the phone booth, because especially Merab, he will shoot 25 times in a round if he sees fit. Like, there's no moment where you're safe from a Merab takedown. And we know what you want to do. What you want to do, Sean. For you to do that, you're going to have to do everything in your power to stay upright. I need to see some of the best takedown defense. Sprawl. If you even see Merab duck, hey, hit a quick sprawl. Just let him know I'm ready for it. If you see him put his head down a little too low, throw a knee out there. Just let him know something's coming for you if you come in with that head a little too center. So that's going to be a fight where I think could actually end up being a little slower pace. People think it's going to be. But knowing Merab's going to do Merab things. He's going to make it exciting. He's going to pressure like no other. Even if he doesn't go for a takedown, he's going to throw a lot of hooks. He's going to throw leg kicks. He's going to throw a lot of things. Keep Sean thinking about other things other than a takedown. And then when a situation comes, gets him back against the cage, use the cage for a takedown.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there. I'm very interested to see it. Nonetheless, I love seeing some of these stylistic clashes because sometimes they produce finishes and
for sure
experiences that we just don't predict. So, very interested to see how that plays out. That's a good card. $299. That's one for the books. A lot of finishes, a lot of excitement, a lot of title ramifications coming from that. We'll see how everything shakes out over these next few weeks. UFC 300 coming up. That's a big one.
It's almost unfortunate 300 is as good as it is because 299 was really a good card. But like we talked about starting 299 at 6 o'clock. No, like UFC 300. Grab your popcorn and clear the rest of your schedule because at 6 p.m. Eastern time, that will be a banger of a card from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, some were saying that UFC 299 and UFC 300 were they could have been interchanged. You could have called either one. To be honest, UFC 300 in April. I mean, Charles Oliveira is starting off the card, man. Like
Which is nasty. How is he not a main card?
Well, I do think that something because I was a little taken back too. They're talking about Bo Nickel.
Bo Nickel.
I think Dana White, UFC brass, they said, hey, we need to start off this card to reel people in. We need to do that with some
I'll be there.
We need to do that with some heat. We want people tuned in at 10 p.m. on the dot. We want them buying this pay-per-view right when it starts. How else do we do that? Let's put one of our most exciting fighters that we have against one of the most up and coming title contenders that we have. And that's why I think they did that. Nobody is saying Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage is, a main event. I think personally that's why they did that.
People will be purchasing ESPN Plus. You will see the large spike in ESPN Plus sales literally for at least a week, and then you may see the biggest decline in ESPN Plus history just before this card.
No, I like I said, only a few weeks away. Probably like three weeks away. Can't wait. Before that though, we got UFC Fight Night, man. We got Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura. We got Brian Battle versus Ange Loosa. We got some fights coming up. I mean, in reality, we got Ovince St. Preux, the return of Ovince St. Preux. In reality, the fight that we really need to talk about is this Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura fight. It's a heavyweight clash. It's the only fight that has ranking implications. I'm very interested to see how this one goes. I mean, Tai Tuivasa is ranked 9, Marcin's ranked 10. So it's essentially a pick 'em. The odds are really close. They're both, around -110, -120. And they're both big guys. I mean,
huge.
Tai, I saw today, he comes into camp 320.
That's crazy.
Defensive tackle for the New England Patriots. Like he is big. He has to cut down to 265. He has to make weight. Tybura, he's a little smaller, but that can have its advantages in the heavyweight division, being a little smaller, maybe a little more cardio, maybe a little more agile. What are your first thoughts on this fight?
It's a very interesting matchup because, like you said, Tai, who is a naturally bigger guy, he definitely comes in. You can see the size, you can see the power when he throws, but he throws with some volume. He goes in there, he comes at you with, I'm not gonna say everything he got. He's not trying to gas himself out, but he's consistent. It's gonna be a jab, a hook, it's gonna be a cross, it's gonna be body shots. He's gonna be in your face. He's gonna try to throw as much as he can at you at a decent pace to make sure you not only know he's there, but to find your weak spot. And then we're talking about Marcin Tybura, who, even though he's smaller, and typically that does in the heavyweight division at least, he has typically usually more cardio in the heavyweight division at least. He actually has a slightly slower pace. His pace in most of his fights are a little bit slower.
For sure.
He's methodical. He's a little older, 37, 38, but he likes to mix up his strikes. He likes to throw different levels of kicks. He has a good sense of range in the pocket. He knows when to get in and get out. But I don't know if Ty's pressure, Tai throwing so much at you, and like I said, not really getting tired, especially in the beginning of fights. I don't know if he can be able to take that, because Tai is, when he wants to be, he can be relentless. He can, when he smells blood, he's going to walk you down and he's going to try to end the fight at that moment. Where I don't know if Marvin will be able to handle someone so large, so much power coming at you with so much speed and strength.
Yeah, I mean, they both need this win. They both need this win. Ty's coming off. He's on a 3-fight lose streak.
I know, it's sad.
And I understand why, because he has a great personality. So they saw him coming up, they strapped a rocket ship to him. They said, "Hey, we want to get you to the top. You're going for knockouts." And I mean, it's well deserved. He knocked out Derek Lewis. I mean,
Yeah.
he's shown this excitement that the heavyweight division has been needing. You know, books a fight with Ciryl Gane, where if he beats Gane, he's fighting for the title.
Yeah. Which
Um,
decently exciting too. It was a good fight.
Oh, it was. Hey, that fight was crazy. He ended up getting KO'd, but I mean, he brought out the best in Ciryl. I'll say
Yeah.
that. He brought out the best in Ciryl. Ciryl was in there throwing to finish, which was a great fight. But then he goes out there, Ty faces Sergey again, gets put out in round 1 against a savage.
Yeah.
And Sergey Pavlovich. And then he goes out and fights Alexander Volkov, somebody who is a mainstay in heavyweight, not young, but very experienced and a veteran. And he gets submitted by him, which we typically don't see from him. So his back is against the wall. I mean, he goes out here and loses a fight to Marcin, who honestly, in my opinion, should be more of a dog. He should be more of an underdog in this fight. I think they set up this fight perfectly for Ty to go out there and get an early finish. As you said, Marcin is more of I don't even want to say slow starter, but he's perfectly capable of going to decision. Like his mindset and how he fights.
Yes.
Yeah, he's okay with that. Ty, I would say, is the opposite. Would you agree that if this does go longer, though, it does swing into Marcin's favor?
Yes, that's the one problem, because we don't see Ty in these grueling longer fights typically. A lot of his fights, for better or worse, are going to end in a finish. So it does make you question if Marcin does have the ability to draw this fight out to make Ty go out there, gas himself a little bit. Will he be able to get him tired, start countering, start walking him down? And if that happens, look, I'm sorry, Bam Bam, but I don't know what to say. Like, are you for real? Are we serious? Was it just a good start and that's it? Like, I don't know. It's one of those things that I really hope he comes there with he's set up to win. He's set up to win. I need him to go out there, prove it, and show it, and not play around. Because if he loses this fight, it'll be a lot of disappointed fans out there.
Yeah, for sure. I don't hide my fandom. I'm a Bam Bam fan. Ty Tuivasa, one of the most exciting heavyweights that we got. To see him go on a potential 4-fight losing streak, I mean,
then it cuts you stuff like that.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask you. How do you feel about guys like this? Because we've seen it with my guy, one of my favorite fighters, Tony Ferguson. He is on quite the losing streak. I mean, he's lost, but he's such a fan favorite that it's almost impossible for the UFC to cut him. So with a guy like Ty, if he loses this next fight, is his title aspirations just over? And for the rest of his career, he's looking at, hey, let's just get him a body in there essentially that he can knock out? Or do you think off of a 4-fight losing streak, he could potentially, reshape himself and change some things, and his title aspirations are still there? He's only 31, so heavyweight, that's pretty young. What are you thinking there?
I think even if he were to lose, it would be a terrible situation for him. But we've seen it. I think he has the tools to come back in there and go back onto a streak. And I don't think he's going to lose. I think he'll end up winning this fight. And with that also being said, I think he can go on a run. And if he can get on another run, at least just get yourself back in those conversations, get yourself back in that kind of mix. I think it will be a possible title shot if he can. He has to. I just need him to. I mean, he's in shape, but I need you to hit the gym a little bit more. I need you to work on your cardio, slender up, lean up a little bit, walking around at 320. At heavyweight, I get it. You can do stuff like that. But at the same time, the way you fight, your style, I can only imagine if he was putting this kind of pressure on you with this much strength and he was leaner, if he had more cardio, what it would look like. And like I said, people love Ty. I love Ty. Exciting fighter. I want to see him come out to this fight with a different attitude, serious, get him gone as fast as possible, and then use that momentum to keep doing it later on.
Yeah, something would have to change if he does end up losing. What's your ideal heavyweight frame wise?
I'm not gonna frame wise. You have to say Cyril Gahn. Cyril Gahn, I think frame wise is what you envision your modern day heavyweight to look like. He's solid. He's lean. He obviously works out. He's powerful. He's strong. The skills, and the skill set, of course, is one thing or another. But you want someone who can, maybe you do walk around 280, 290. Maybe you do mess around with 300 a little bit. But when it's fight time, coming down about 25, 30 pounds, being able to hit the treadmill, go into some crazy cardio workouts, beef up a little bit, but also staying lean. Don't just go in there. The thing about heavyweight is everyone believes you can just be powerful, just be strong, and you can knock anybody out with one shot, which is the truth. But at the elite level, especially at heavyweight, the better striker is going to usually get his shot before the other guy does.
Right.
So it's still skill involved. You can't just be out there swinging and just hope for the best. I think just go out there, be lean, be fit, be secure, just be tactical. Don't just swing and play your game, fight your fight. Things can happen for you.
For sure. I mean, I think I agree. This new age, I mean, you look at football, it's the same thing. You got defensive tackles that are 320, 330, and they're mammoths. They take up gas, they take up room. But shout out to the greatest defensive tackle of all time that retired today, Aaron Donald. He is by no means that. He's not a small guy. Like, don't get me wrong, he's not small, but he's ripped. He's solid. Yeah. He's agile. He has good footwork. He has good hand speed. He has all of these other factors that aren't necessarily attributed to weight. And I think that would translate to the UFC, to MMA the same way. And that's why I think Cyril Gahn got so much success so early, is because his frame, his body type allowed him to outpace people. It allowed him to be more agile. He had diversity in his strikes. I thought Stipe would have kind of changed everybody's opinion on heavyweight. I mean, I would have thought. I was a little hesitant on Stipe just back in the day, being like, well, he's not the biggest, he's not the fat. Like, that's the greatest heavyweight that we've seen today.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I just would think that the Bam Bam, the Derek Lewis, those type of builds would kind of start to phase out, which I think we're starting to see. You got guys like Tom Aspinall, who
I like him. Good frame.
That's good frame. I think
good
that's
frame.
a guy.
I'm okay with that.
Exactly. I think that's a guy who we're gonna see people begin to resemble more. But what we got is what we got. We got Bam Bam 320 Tai Tuivasa coming in here. One of the most exciting fighters that we have seen in heavyweight. So I'm really excited for that. Do you have anything else on that fight?
No, that's pretty much it. Exciting fight. I need Tai to show he's not playing around anymore.
I do. I will never hide my fandom. I need him to get a win. But Marcin is a great competitor, so we will see. Moving on, man. This is a new segment that I'm really interested to see, and it's something that, especially in our friend group, and I'm sure any friend group that watches MMA, watches the UFC, they probably have done this. I've always had the dream of selling Dana White a fight, creating my own fight, phone fight cards, things like that. I've been very interested in just seeing that. And this new segment is called Sell Me a Fight. I want to hear you sell me a fight. Who, what, when, where, why? What is it? Who is it? Why is it? That's a big one. Why? What am I watching? And then I can say if I'm in or out. I can offer counters, be like, well, what do you think about this? I'm really interested to see, because you told me you had something concocted. I'm interested to see.
Yeah.
Ron, sell me a fight.
So I wanted to do something a little different, something that was not so one dimensional, a typical fight that people would think about setting up, and it was Zhang Weili and Alexa Grossa.
Ooh, it's not where, that's not where I thought you were going. Interesting.
I'm sure. So the reason I put this fight together and get my notes out for this one, because I definitely wanted to, I want to make sure I sold this one correctly. So in the women's strawweight division, there is one challenger, particularly one challenger that I think is worth Zhang Weili's time, and that's that's Yan. I'm sorry if I'm butchering her name, Yan. And I think that could be a great fight. That's very exciting. I think that could, for UFC 300 fight. Like that's gonna be a great fight for her to get in there and both of them to show their skill sets, because that should be overall a well-rounded fight showing both their skill sets. But besides that, though, there's nothing in the strawweight division that is currently for Zhang Weili. There's nothing. We have Amanda. We have Tatiana Suarez at 2. Hey. I get it. I get it. But I mean,
I hear you though.
You feel me? Like I don't want to downplay some of these women right now. I just don't think they are currently on the right track for the skill to beat a Zhang Weili. Amanda Lemos at 3, Jessica Andrade at 4. I mean, these just aren't names that currently strike me as people Zhang Weili should have, she should be worried about. But really, what I would love to see Zhang Weili face Alexa Grossa, because I believe she could definitely fit in the flyweight division. I believe that not only did Alexa Grossa knock off one of the best women's fighters we've ever seen in Valentina, but she's well respected. Like, that's a fighter whose ground game, grappling, submissions is among the best. And I can only imagine, like, she had a whole game plan for Valentina when it came to the striking and stand up, which, I mean, it was down to the details. She likes to throw a spinning kick. When you see her gear up for this kick, take her back immediately. And that's what happened. Like, if she's taking notes like that, doing stuff like that, I think that her kind of tactician, that kind of mindset to a fight like Zhang Weili, who's not as, she doesn't throw as many flashy strikes as a Valentina. It's going to be a little more boxing oriented. She throws a lot of kicks, she does, but a lot of elbows. But Zhang Weili does like going to the ground a lot too. So a fighter that's going to probably go to the fight with Alexa Grosso as well for a possible double champ status. I mean, this would be, outside of Amanda Nunes, this would be something different, something we haven't seen in women's MMA. So I think that can not only benefit that aspect of things, but also you can then set up a Zhang Weili versus Valentina fight, which I know how you probably feel about that, but multifaceted here. You have Valentina in there with, again, one of the better strikers in women's MMA. Another ground fighter who can transition, move, who wants to wrestle with you, who has great defense, takedown defense, and his defense on the ground, who's just as aggressive, probably more aggressive than Valentina, if we're being honest. I think Zhang is probably the most aggressive women's fighter out that will now. I was going to say besides Amanda Nunes, but considering her retirement, I think she's the most aggressive women's fighter we have right now. So someone who's going to try to be in your face on so many levels here. I think you have Zhang Weili go to flyweight. There's so many avenues you can do with that I really believe that could be something. That could be something. Like I said, we'll go back to these notes right here. We also have the simple fact that, excuse me, we haven't had a proper, double champion really ever, because even though Amanda did win it, she only defended it, I believe, once. That was against Cyborg, where Zhang Weili was to go over and change divisions. Like, she would obviously, if she was to win it, defend it against a Valentina or someone like that, making her, and maybe even several defenses even after that, if Dana allows it. Where at that point, like I said, again, a proper double champion of women's mixed martial arts. I think there's so much you can do here, and I love Zhang Weili. Some of my fandom is showing here. I really, that's the fight that I would love to see.
One question I have is, where do we have this fight? Are we having this fight at T-Mobile in Vegas? Are we having this Mexico City for Alexa? Are we having this in Beijing for Weili? Are we where are we having this?
The where is hard because I want to give it to Alexa Grosso considering she is the champion, but I think Zhang she's number one. Actually, you know what? It has to be. It has to be. It has to be her because Alexa Grosso is also actually number one in women's women's rankings right now. So with that being said, yeah, you have to give it. It has to be Mexico City then. Wow, it's unfortunate, but yeah, that's exactly where it have to be. But it doesn't matter. Zhang's been under. Hold on. Zhang Wei Li. You talk about some pressure. Talk about some moments in UFC history. The moment I became a fan of Zhang Wei Li was back in 2020. I forgot who she even fought, but it was an entire arena of fans who were just hostile towards her. It was a lot of booing and no one really knew who she was at the time. It was definitely a time where a lot of things were going on politically in the United States. A lot of things were going on, but she was just trying to make her way, make her path. No one knew who she was really, and she was trying to find her a win. And she went out there and put on fireworks. She went out there, showed what she could do, striking, ground, little ground and pound, grappling. I said, wait, like she's good. Like I can definitely see her being a future champ. She has everything. She has everything you would want in a champion. And I mean, look, since then, Zhang Weili's been my girl. I don't know, man. I think it'd be a really cool matchup to see her against Grosso, and then of course what could also perspire after that as well.
No, I wasn't even thinking Alexa Wei Li. They are number one and number two.
Number one, number two. Yeah, that too.
The pound for pound list, which I think even in men's MMA, I think we've only seen that once, and that was just with Volkanovski and Islam. That was the first time that we've seen number one pound for pound versus number two pound for pound. So I do think that's very interesting. I would be on board with that. I do. Weili's kind of. She's definitely stocky. She definitely could meet the requirements of flyweight, but flyweight, like Alexa is solid. Like she's solid. I knew she was solid when she was in there, clinching up and grappling with Valentina, and I've never seen Valentina been kind of strong arm before, and I saw Alexa do it. I was like, that's kind of crazy. I know Alexa has a crazy fan base, not even just in Mexico, but worldwide now. Her personality is great. Wei Li's personality is great. She has begun learning English, which I hate to bring that into it, but just a fact of the matter is,
when you learn English, they're different.
You speak English, you elevate. That's just kind of how it is. I'd be behind that. I do think you would need. I don't know. It depends what kind of card it is, because that definitely could headline a pay-per-view. If we've learned anything, it's that a strong women's fight can headline a pay-per-view. Joanna versus Wei Li, while it was the co-main of that UFC pay-per-view with Izzy versus Romero, Wei Li versus Joanna easily could have headlined
one of the best fights I've ever seen.
Oh, for sure.
I would take that fight over thousands of fights that have headlined men's wise. Like that was man. Look.
Oh, for sure. So I mean, if this Wei Li versus Grasso fight it doesn't have to live up to that fight, because I think that fight is 1 in a million. But even if it's anywhere in that realm, it definitely could headline a pay-per-view. So I'm in. I'm not really sure. I lean Grasso. That's where I lean.
That's crazy.
We don't have to necessarily get into the X's and O's of.
You know why? You're leaning Grosso because she took out your girl.
Hey, respect, dude. I saw her do something that I've never seen somebody do before. So
besides Amanda Nunes,
she ain't finished Val. I saw Val.
Okay. You're right.
So that's maybe I am biased in that play, but I don't know. That's a good one though. That's a good one. I'm in. Maybe we'll just build a fight card next week. I'll bring in a fight that's not necessarily a pay-per-view fight, but a co-main. I'll bring in a nice co-main for you to complement that card, and it's gonna fit in. It's gonna fit in smoothly. That sounds good. Moving on though, you got any plays of the week?
On this current card coming on to us tomorrow with Ty, we do have a was it Angel Losa. He fights Battle. I forgot. I don't remember his
Brian
first
Battle.
name. Yeah, Brian Battle. He fights him. I think it can be a very interesting matchup. I do lean towards Angel Losa plus 140. He's a little more. He has a little more, oomph to him. He's gonna be in your face. He's not afraid to throw. He's gonna throw. He's gonna be in your face, and he's gonna throw hooks, body shots. He's not gonna let Battle, breathe really. Battle typically in his fights, he kind of slows down. He wants to slow the pace down. He does fight at his own pace, which is good for fighters to do. They let a lot of other fighters dictate the pace of the fight they want to fight in, which is not good. Battle does a good job controlling his own pace, but when Losa kind of gets in your face the way he typically does, he's gonna either have to shoot for takedowns, which he doesn't do a lot of typically, and he's gonna have to fire back because he's gonna be outpointed or he's gonna get knocked out. So I think Battle's going to have a problem with the pace. It's just because of the pace he typically fights at. It's going to be an issue for him to kind of overcome Losa.
Okay, I mean that's a good one. Brian Battle, he was on Tough with Ortega and Volk. So he kind of has a history there. But there is good value. There's not too many value picks on this card. So, that's a good value pick. As far as mine, I just want to preface this, guys. I, again, 100% last week on my picks. So if you want to make some money, I'm giving you hypothetical options. I didn't put together a parlay this week, but I am taking Brian Barberena at plus 200 to beat Gerald Meerschaert. I actually saw Brian Barberena fight live when I went to my UFC pay-per-view in Las Vegas. And I became a fan that day. He fought Robbie Lawler, and we know Robbie Lawler's a savage. He's a fan favorite. Everybody was in there rooting for Robbie, and Brian went in there and took him out. And from that point on, I was very impressed. He's had some up and downs since then, as has his opponent Gerald Meerschaert. So I think Brian plus 200, go in there and make some bread, hypothetically, not tangible, but hypothetically. And lastly, quickly for debate of the day, man. I'll let you
Look, should all of these UFC MMA guys, I don't care if it's against Jake Paul, I don't care if it's a professional, if it's against old if it's old fighters, new fighters, I don't care who it is against. Should they be going into boxing? Should they keep on? Like, I get the money aspect of things, but no one wants to see their favorite keep taking these kind of losses in a sport that you're not even like, you're not a part of. You don't box. You're not a boxer.
Right.
Personally, I'm on the side of no. I don't want to keep seeing this. It gives me the feeling of when you watch a Tony Ferguson, just a household name, a guy we've seen win time after time, so much accomplished, and then he loses. He's older now, he loses. You're like, bro, please put it down, put them down. Just stop having me go through this. And then, like, look, when Tyron Woodley lost way back when, I thought UFC champion, he has crazy power. He can't wrestle, but there's no way he would.
Got put out.
He was a meme. He was a meme for like 6 months.
He was.
And it also hurts the boxer versus MMA fighter, or boxer will win every single time. In boxing, yes, you're right. Put them in any other circumstance, no, they wouldn't. I believe it was Sean O'Malley, or if it was Ryan Garcia. No, Ryan Garcia wants to fight mixed martial arts because he thinks that he can take out any mixed martial artist because his boxing is so good. If he just learns how to stop a takedown, he can just beat any mixed martial arts at their game, which is crazy. It's a crazy thought. Look, I get it. The reputation of these UFC MMA guys coming to boxing hasn't been great lately, but to think you can come in and do what they do, come on, dog.
I disagree. Not just because it's debate of the day. I do disagree. I hear what you're saying, because watching Tyron Woodley get put out by Jake Paul, that hurt me. Watching Anderson Silva lose and get wobbled by Jake Paul, that hurt me. Seeing Francis Ngannou get put out by Anthony Joshua, it did hurt me. But I like seeing people dare to be great, man. I like seeing it. Well, let's travel back in time to where this all started. You know, we got UFC champion Conor McGregor, who is coming off a flawless performance. Flawless performances, you know, Jose Aldo, Eddie Alvarez, you know, guys like that. And he takes on Floyd Mayweather, and Floyd was older at the time, but he was still boxing. Like, he was still Floyd. And the thought of Conor McGregor versus Floyd was like, whoa, like, what are we talking about? Like, this is insane. And then he got in there, and I remember being impressed. I was like, wow, I didn't think Conor would do that well. I mean, Cottrell just said he looked good in there for a little bit. Obviously, Floyd is the best boxer we've ever seen. So naturally he pulled away towards the end, and he eventually stopped, all that. But I was like, wow, it's interesting to see Conor go in there and fight him. Now, what if Conor went and fought the number 3 or the number 4 ranked fighter? Like, what if he went in there and did that? You know, I am curious to see that. Now, these celebrity, you know, I don't want to see veterans go in there and fight Jake Paul. I don't want to see Mike Tyson, which I understand is boxing on boxing. I don't want to see Mike Tyson go in there and fight Jake Paul. I'm not arguing for that. But Francis Ngannou, I understand he took a risk. He got knocked out. Dare we forget a fight before that when he fought what's his name? Tyson Fury. And he almost pulled it out. You remember that feeling that we got? We're like, wow, like MMA back on top. Like, we almost beat them. You don't like that? Like, you don't resonate with that?
No, it's funny because I do. But like, I'm on Twitter. I see the comments. There's like continuous beef between the boxing and the MMA community. There's regular beef between the communities. And anytime I see a loss, especially like Anthony Joshua and Francis, it's like, oh, okay, like here these guys go. I'm trying to scroll past the comments, man. I don't want to see it, but it happened. It happened the way they said it was going to happen. And it's just, man, like, doesn't it? I think, me personally, I feel like there should be. I understand you want there to be great, but going into your sport where you've done for X amount of years, and winning is a huge accomplishment. Losing, I feel like, only hurts me, my reputation, my brand, not as far as, like, you know, endorsements and stuff go, but as far as, oh, like, this actually, it's one thing to say what if, it's another thing to say but that happened. So it's like, man, like, I have too much pride to kind of sit there and allow, you know, like, I get it, to allow the other community to want to, you know, talk to you, the Anthony Joshua's, and I get it. You want to go in there and you want to show off, like, no, I'm good enough. I'm too prideful to let you talk to me about talk like that to me. Like, I can go in there in your sport and do it. But also, it's like, let's be realistic. There's a reason. I mean, look, he's talking to you that kind of way for a reason. He knows you're out of your comfort zone. He's been practicing, trying to get in the outside leg outside of yours to counter with a perfect right, you know, trying to slip the perfect. He's been doing that his entire life. You have practiced mixed martial arts boxing, which is a different brand. You don't do so much head sways. You get kicked in the head. You know, shout out to Kamaru Usman. You know, things like that happen. Yeah. It's a different type of fighting. You're going into almost unknown waters, and once you're in there and realize exactly what you're getting into, a lot of those fights end up happening the way you don't want them to go.
You don't sit there and think, man, I you know, perfect points, but you don't sit there and you see Sean O'Malley talking about Gervonta Davis. You don't sit there and at first you're like, what? And then you're like, well, how does that fight go? Because they're both the same weight. They both can make the same weight. Whether it's 35, 37, 42, they both are right around that bantamweight range. You don't just sit there and think, I know Gervonta is the more credentialed boxer. He's the more precise boxer. But, man, if Sean goes in there, uses his reach, he keeps distance, and he just kind of touches him up. He doesn't let Gervonta land that famous uppercut that he always gets. You don't sit there and think like, man, that could be a good fight.
I think about it, but then I think about what makes this person great. Because Sean can't throw a kick. He can't throw a body kick when things get rough. He can't throw a front kick. He can't chop the legs down. This is like, don't get me wrong, he has some of the best one-shot knockouts we've seen in the UFC the past few years. Crazy walk-offs.
True.
But when you're talking about a guy, we're talking about a specialist. A boxer is a specialist. If you had to rate their overall game, it's not high. But as far as being boxing and boxers, they are specialized in that. Sean O'Malley, you are not a boxer. You are an MMA UFC fighter. You want to talk about that kind of boxing matchup? I see a lot of body shots getting thrown at Sean. I see a couple feints. I see a hook coming at him from Gervonta. I see not a good situation. I don't see Sean able to get into his bag the way he would like to. And I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, it really comes down to, do you really have what it takes to get in there and work on your skills? I get it. They have time to kind of brush up before the fight happens. But do you really have ultimately what it takes to really put in the work to fight a pure boxer? I don't know.
I mean, I think I maybe it's because I'm more focused on the names. I'm not as much focused on the specifics of, what does Sean look like in the ring? Like, I just, Sean versus Ryan Garcia, like that jumps off the page to me. I'm like,
right.
Wow, that could be a great fight, whether it takes place in MMA, which, like you said, I think that's asinine that Ryan Garcia thinks, with no jiu-jitsu training, with no grapple training, with no takedown defense training, he could come in here and just fight Sean O'Malley in the UFC. Like, there's no way. Even knowing Sean's not a ground fighter, I know Sean would submit him relatively quickly. So,
my issue is I hate seeing my favorites lose.
But they dare.
You were talking about, you watch like a lot of fights back.
I do.
I'll watch a lot of fights back. A lot of my favorite fighters. If the loss was too bad, I'm not watching it again. I'm not watching it.
Oh, for sure.
I have never watched Anderson versus was it not Whitaker, Anderson in when he broke his leg.
Oh, Weidman.
Never watched it twice. Never seen it. I saw it live. Never watched it again. I'm not watching it. I have never rewatched Jose versus McGregor. I never rewatched it.
Ooh,
never rewatched it.
Next time we hang out, I'm gonna watch that with you.
I'm gonna close my eyes.
Nah, because
like I'm losses like that, I'm not watching. I'm not watching that back. And I don't want to see my favorites go out that way. They're going out sad. They're going out in ways they shouldn't be going out.
I'm not gonna disagree with you there. I mean, we can just leave it at that, because I do see your side. I think there's a good side to it and a bad side. I think you dare to be great sometimes. I think that's just the nature of sports in general, of competition. You dare to be great, you dare to challenge yourself. But on the other side, I do hate seeing things like that. Last question. I just see in the comments, Coach Barwood, he said the real question is who wins in a boxing match between us. I got me. That's who I'm taking. I think just the precision, the accuracy. I don't just what do you say?
What are you about to say here?
I don't just hope and pray. Like, I aim and fire. That's just
okay. This guy's trying to come up with one-liners. Look, let me tell you about the history of Ron here. Look, I was in those trenches. I'll admit I haven't been there in a second, but don't think for 1 second I forgot what I learned. I'd be in here during work, just shadow boxing, working on them, work sways, counters. I'd be in here. I know what I'm doing still. I got that. Look, give me a couple weeks of some training just to get the cardio up. Look, I'm point, Come in there, boom, 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 get up out of there. I'm gone. Look, I know what I'm doing in there. I know what I'm doing.
Hey, this
I
guy's
still
crazy.
got it.
This guy's crazy. We'll have to put on some backyard brawls for our fans. Anyways, nonetheless, great show, man. Like I said, 299 was great. This fight night's gonna be great. We got UFC 300 on the horizon. I'm really excited. Make sure y'all check out Real Recognize Real tomorrow at 2 p.m. My boy Cottrell Simpson. He is doing another breakdown. I'm not even gonna say who it is because you got to check it out.
For sure.
One of the best football minds that I've seen that I have had the presence of being around. So go check that out tomorrow, 2 p.m. Anything else?
No, shout out to all the dogs, man. Everyone who's tuned in with us. For sure. I'm excited for these cards in the future here. Next week after that, UC 300 for sure. We have a lot more to talk about.
A lot more to talk about, man. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I will talk.